Hey guys, Drifter here. Today I'm bringing you something a little bit unusual. I'm doing a dual commentary with my man Aegis,
Hello.
and he's going to be providing some double nukes on Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 on the PC, but we're really not going to be talking about the gameplay much here. We're going into obviously Jesus territory here, religion, philosophy, science, universe creation, and half a dozen other things, so put your serious hats on.
Oh yeah.
Aegis, what are we starting with today?
I think maybe we should start with religious views because that's sort of an all-encompassing topic and stuff. So I'm just going to ask you, what general outline do you have for your religious beliefs?
My religious beliefs is not something I've actually discussed on my channel before, but I would say they are relatively mainstream Christian with more liberal Christianity mixed in there and some degree of uncertainty. When I say that I'm Christian, I know that is instantly going to start the trolling down there and start the kids like, fuck you!
Yeah.
You believe in the monster in the sky. I'm like, God damn it, it's more complicated than here I am talking about Christianity and using the Lord's name in vain. You can see how good I am. A lot of my beliefs are not particularly mainstream. I live in the Bible Belt in the United States. This is like where the hardcore shit, like you see on TV, creationism, people screaming at each other, kind of
Yeah.
stuff is going on. And I'm not part of that group. I
That
don't know.
sort of that sort of belief that the Bible Belt belief. That's what people really hate on. I mean, have you heard of Richard Hawking?
Yes, I know Richard Dawkins.
That's the one. He's
Yeah, Hawking is the
the
what is it?
scientist.
Physicist. Yes.
Yeah, I've got his book here, The God Delusion, and it's all that he does is just troll on the mainstream Christians, the ones that believe the God man in the sky controlling everything. And
Yeah,
if
he slams people pretty hard. I actually made a friend here on campus, and he was telling me a lot about this kind of stuff. And he mentions like, "Oh, have you ever heard of Richard Dawkins?" And I was like, "Yeah, you mean the biologist that discovered the selfish gene and this kind of stuff?" And he's like, "Yeah, but Richard Dawkins is really this awesome atheist." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know about that too. He's like a really big dick, basically."
yeah, he is. And my parents are both ministers, which a lot of people don't know, but
Ooh.
that means that they're both very religious, but in a different sense. They're Methodist. I don't know if you've know.
We
Oh,
have Methodists here. To
okay.
be honest, I couldn't pick out the difference between a Methodist, a Presbyterian, Baptist. I could probably spot Catholic. That's a little different, but of
Basically,
the Protestants, it's
yeah,
very similar.
they're very very liberal. So they don't believe in anything like creationism, like where the world was made 2,000 years ago or something. They don't believe in that, and they don't believe in a lot of the mainstream sort of stuff. So
Okay, well, here's the difference. I'm actually gonna counter you there. I do believe that the world was created to some degree. Now, when I say that, I'm not talking about Noah's Ark and all the little elephants and giraffes hanging out, or that it was exactly 7 days and the Earth is 5,000 years old. But the world, as I see it, does seem to have some degree of purpose to it. Lots of chaos, but I do believe in the Bible, and I do believe that we were created for a reason. The method of creation, the literal 7 days, or just that you can prove this by researching anything. No, I don't believe that. I believe that the people that believe that's very stupid, because if you think about it, if you believe in God, and God is a infinitely wise and intelligent, benevolent being that controls all things, and he wants to create an entire religion based off of nothing but faith in him with no way to prove. If you can prove something is real, if you can say that it's concrete and predictable, that kind of destroys faith. And let's say
yeah,
God did create the world in 6,000 years, and he left behind all of this evidence, and that you could prove it, and that you could prove it with this, and you could prove this religion was right over and over again because of this evidence. That would kind of destroy that entire faith-based scheme, and that would make
yeah.
for a very, very stupid God.
It wouldn't be faith, would it? It'd be science. But
Exactly.
the way I'm not actually anywhere near my parents in the spectrum. I would call myself. I don't know if I would call myself religious as strictly as that, but I believe that there was a photon to begin with, and I believe that a photon's a bit of light that's basically a packet of energy.
Yes.
And the simplest way to describe the start of the universe would be with the simplest thing that can make it. So if you said a god made the universe, that where does the god come from?
Uh, if you go theoretically, that would be like beyond the universe. Like the concept of God is so big, so infinite, so absolute. Anything that exists, God is beyond that simply by definition. That's something that the
Mm.
Jewish peoples tend to do a lot of. A lot of people think, oh, God just hangs out on the other side of the universe. It's like, no, God is kind of beyond the
Outside it,
universe.
yeah.
Anything that you can say, the concept of God automatically will supersede by definition.
Which is
Or
a dangerous way to think,
yes, yes, it
because
is.
it's like saying that, you know, we're all part of God's plan, right? So this guy who killed someone, that was God's plan. So why is he going to jail for it?
That's a question that I'm going to tell you that I'm not qualified to answer. I don't
Mm.
have a good answer for that. When you think about things from a time perspective, like let's say that time is something that exists just for us and we can perceive it passing but not really perceive the effect of time, then a question like, why did this person die? Or why did this person live? Or why is this happening? Is a lot more complex because of the even a very insignificant person doing a very small thing can create an avalanche effect that 1,000 years later will create an entirely different world. That's kind of brushing off the question, but my honest answer is I don't know. Things are too complex for me to know. I mean, human beings, we exist in, depending on physicists, 8 to 11 dimensions, but we're only able to perceive 3 of them. So we're like higher dimensional beings that are practically blind. We can only see like 3/8 of what we're doing. I'm
I'd
kind of
not
rambling.
thought of that,
Sorry.
because no, I'd not thought of that, because that's an interesting theory. That is that the dimension of time, because it is a dimension, isn't it? It's just
No, no, I
forward and
don't think
backward.
so. Time is like time is a force or like an elemental, a constant, a physical constant. The people in like science fiction, they like to write of time as the dimension because it's very easy to think of it as a dimension, but I don't
Yeah.
think it is. The extra dimensions are like extra spatial dimensions, like things that we literally cannot perceive. That's my understanding of it. I'm coming in this kind of raw, kind of rough. Haven't brushed up on my, dimensionality on Wikipedia, but
Oh well, I think that's kind of. There's more ways to say it though, because they say in the Bible that the God is begotten, not created, as in like he's been there for the whole of time. I can't get my head around that. Therefore, I can't believe it. You know what I
yes.
mean?
Well, you say it's one of those things like that's faith again. If you believe it, you believe it. If you have to prove it, if you have to know and understand everything about it, it's not so much faith as it
Mm.
is just reasoning. And when you apply our reasoning to something that is by definition unreasonable, it breaks. It doesn't work, never will work. I mean, if somebody can prove something so absolutely one day that it works every time, I'll shit my pants. I really will. I'll just fill them full.
All right. Well, maybe we should move on to the topic of determinism,
Okay.
the philosophical doctrine that all events, including human actions, are fully determined by preceding events. That's a definition, by the way. I've not made this up off my head. But what do you think of determinism?
That's another one that I read so much that my opinions are very uncertain. I wish that I could be more strong-willed about these things.
Yeah.
That's kind of the curse. Like the more you know, the more you realize you know so much less. The best example would be: have you ever heard of Laplace's demon?
No, I haven't, I'm afraid.
Laplace, if I'm not mistaken, he's a French mathematician, but very, very good mathematician. He invented the Laplace transform, which is very useful in calculus and some engineering kind of things. But he proposed back in the, I think it was 17th, 18th centuries, he said, imagine a demon. We'll just use magic for this one because it's easier. A
Yeah.
demon, a magical demon out there in space watching, and he knows everything. He knows the position of every atom, every electron spin, every thought in your head, everything that ever was, exactly how it is at a certain point in time. Giving all that information, can this demon perfectly predict everything in the future, being that he's super intelligent and can handle all that information? Will his predictions of the future be perfect every time? Or does it not work that way, as there is some degree of uncertainty that can never be known no matter how much information you have?
That's the theory, isn't it? The theory of determinism. But in practice, what scientists have come up with is the fact that you can't work out. I think it's the momentum and also the. There's another factor of the atom that you can't work out at the same time. What is it?
You're talking about its position and its spin,
So
its
its position
wave.
and its momentum, the two
Well, when you're
factors. If
talking
you,
about atoms, you're mostly talking about electrons because that's what really interacts with
yeah,
people. And you
because
can talk about the wave particle experiment. If you take a bunch of atoms, I actually think this works with that. No, it's electrons, and you shoot them through these little slits in a plate. uh, when you're not watching them, when nobody is there to observe the electrons to go through the plate, they go through about like a wave. So instead of being everybody, they show these models with electrons as little balls, but they're really much more complicated than that.
yeah,
It would be like instead of an electron being a ball, it would be like a little wave of energy, and it goes through the plate. So you can see on the other side, it makes a very distinct pattern that a wave would make. Like it'll go through all the plates at once and hit all the different things. Like, okay, well, this is very strange. So we're going to put our camera up very, very close, and we're going to watch this slit in the plate, and we're going to see what happens to these electrons as they go through. Well,
they
what
go
the
dead
fuck?
straight, don't they? Yeah.
Yeah, they go
Instead of
straight through like particles. So when you watch
fanning
them,
out.
they behave like particles.
Mm,
This is starting to get where quantum theory
yeah.
came from, because when you observe something, its behavior changes. People still don't understand this too well, or at least I certainly don't. I haven't read any good explanations. It's like the electrons know that we're watching them,
Yeah.
and they behave
It's,
differently, and
it's
I
the
don't
observer
understand
theory,
this.
isn't it?
Yes,
If there was nothing, if we weren't here in this universe, the theory states that everything would be completely different, doesn't it? Because we're
I'm
not here
not
to watch it.
sure. I don't know if that's a philosophical reasoning or a scientific one.
Philosophical, because there's no scientific hard evidence for a lot of this stuff. But that fact that they when they move through the slits, they fan out when you're not watching them. It's incredible, really, isn't it?
Yes, it really rapes my mind. Like
Yeah.
those electrons put their little fat, slimy electron dicks in my ear and just go straight for the mind because I just don't understand it. There's something about it that's very, very baffling.
Mm.
Or the quantum theory. See, if you're talking about if you know quantum theory, everything works on probabilities. The probabilities are very extreme in one direction of something working, but there's also the probability that at any given moment you could fall straight through the floor, through the wall if the atoms lined up just right. Because
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And there's another thing to do with probability that states that an atom can split at any time into smaller subatomic particles and then merge back together again. That's due to probability. And another theory that I'm quite partial to is that our universe is one of these subatomic particles to a larger universe, and that our universe, because from the Big Bang, what do you say to that? That maybe that was the atom splitting, and then it's going to collide back together again and become an inverted commas atom in another universe. What do you think of that?
I've thought of that, and it's a very complicated question. It's that also kind of goes back to our observer theory. When you look at what we know of the macro structure of the universe, it's very strange looking. It looks kind of veinous. We
Hmm.
have these super clusters of galaxies, but they seem to be constrained by dark matter, which it's not black. It's just some sort of energy that we
Yeah,
don't understand.
well, it was 90% of it's that, isn't it?
Hmm.
And that's affecting
But
the gravity. Yeah, go on.
the,
Sorry.
the bigger the picture of the universe we look at, the more it starts to resemble smaller things that we understand. I'm not sure about atoms, but maybe some theories of like quarks and some cells and some other circular objects. It begins to look very much like them. This might be just that we're observing it wrong, or that we're attributing it to things, or it could be part of a much larger macro structure. Because if you think about it, if an atom were the size, if the nucleus of an atom were the size of like a baseball,
Hmm.
and you dropped it in the middle of a soccer, or in your case football stadium, the electrons would be like little gnats buzzing around at the nosebleeds up there in the very, very top.
That's right. Yeah. If it was a
Let's
football, it'd
say,
be miles
yeah,
away. Yeah.
yeah, if we were infinitely small and living on that little atom in such a way that the atom was the size of our universe, there would be absolutely no fucking way we could ever know that there was anything beyond that or those electrons. And any fluctuation we had on our time scale, like it says our universe is constantly expanding. And I believe that. I've seen the math behind that. And I know that that's true, but we've only been able to observe it for a very small period of time. It's accelerating, but what if we're still in the middle of an explosion? Like, if we're so small and tiny and insignificant, the universe is moving and changing and doing things faster than we could ever hope to possibly comprehend, then it's all unknown.
Well,
I
that's
guess
the
I'm
thing is
really shitty.
it's redshift is what they're trying to calculate the size of the universe from redshift, and that takes into account the speed of light, which is supposed to be the fastest you can go. But have you seen the recent developments? But
Which ones?
they fired a particle between CERN in Sweden and Italy, and apparently it went faster than the speed of light. So this whole thing, c constant speed of light, 3 × 10⁸. That's been thrown into doubt now because something can apparently travel faster than it. So all these theories could be wrong.
They could, but that was one experiment. They're getting ready to repeat it and
Mm.
repeat it in several variations to see if it can be proved. Every now and then, there's a group of scientists that say that they've got a perfect energy machine or that they've exceeded the speed of light, and every time there's always something small. They've always done something remarkable, but it's never breaking a physical constant. It would be
Yeah.
cool if they did this. Even if they did, I wouldn't be very impressed by teleporting or moving, say, a single electron very, very fast, because the difference between moving an electron, which has practically no mass and could even be a wave for all we know, is very
Well,
different from moving a bulk item like yourself, because the speed of light isn't constant. Actually, it's a maximum limit. The
yeah. If
speed
it's
of
in a
light is,
vacuum.
yes, in a vacuum. You can actually slow the speed of light down when it's not in a vacuum, but
Yeah.
in a vacuum, it's pretty much constant, and you can't move any faster than that, because anything moving faster than that would require an infinite amount of energy to continue to accelerate, which
That's right.
just doesn't exist.
That's right.
All right, so now I've rambled a long time. What are your religious beliefs? I really just don't know.
Well, mine. I call myself Charlieist, which is I know kind of strange, but basically it just means that I'm of my own religion, and by that I mean that no one else has the same religious beliefs as me, because I think that this particle that started the universe, whether it was the atom in the other one or the photon, something must have sent it. Either that or the particle itself was sentient, because I can't get my head around the fact that it happened for no reason.
All right. Well, I feel like I'm playing the bad host here because you gave me pretty much unlimited room to spill on my religious beliefs with very little criticism, which I was not expecting, by the way. But I'm going to start laying into you a little bit here. You ready for that?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So if you're Charliest, do you see a problem with people creating their own religion and just saying that I believe what I believe? That's all that matters. Like, is that? What do you think about that?
I wouldn't really call myself religious. I mean, I wouldn't say Charlieism is a religion. It's more of a philosophy of life. But I have no problem with people starting their own religions because
Okay,
they.
but here's the next question was, do you believe that a religion invented by one guy just by himself is just as valid as any of the larger, more established religions?
Mm, absolutely, because Christianity, yes, it's larger, more established, but think about the fact that um, all of the people in Christianity, well, a lot of the people in Christianity, like take for example yourself, maybe you've been brought up as a Christian, and
Correct?
think about it. If you weren't a Christian by your parent, if you hadn't been brought up Christian, would you be a Christian nowadays?
I don't have a good answer for that. My past, I was brought up Christian, but I was actually atheist until I was in my teenage years. I didn't really come to God until much, much later in life. As I say, I was raised Christian, but I actually rejected it for a long time. I was atheist until my later teenage years. But the reason I changed over is because eventually I became to understand what they were teaching more, the big picture ideals behind it. And I don't see religions. I'm going to lay a little personal criticism at you here. Tell me if I'm wrong. A lot of people review religions like a hat. Like, this religion fits me, therefore I like that religion. This religion is my style, that's for me. This religion makes me do something, therefore I don't believe in it. I don't view religion as something like that, but more of a group of people that are seeking to know a truth greater than themselves. And you can't have equal truths. There is something that is untrue or true to an extent, and you are not true, and you don't. You can't just, if everybody's right all the time,
Uh,
then the whole thing is pointless. Like, I don't go to church. I don't believe in Christianity because it fits me or because it's convenient. It's because I see it as the truth.
do you therefore think that because your religion is bigger than everyone else's, that you're more likely to be true?
No,
Okay.
that is not the case. But what I was getting at is like I said, the people that see religion as an aspect of life rather than an understanding for life.
I see.
Like people that say, "Oh, I believe in." A lot of people believe in something just because of what they can get from it.
Yeah.
Politically, or a religion should not fall under the same category.
I completely agree with that. Uh,
Okay, and now we're going back to this particle, this photon thing.
mm.
So do you believe that the photon itself, as a single a particle, had some degree of intelligence to it, or sentience, or it was an actor, or was acted upon, or
Well,
can you elaborate?
I think that the simplest way that the universe could have been created is if that photon, but it had to be put there, didn't it? But you can't explain that, so you may as well not try. You can't explain that any more than you can explain an old man in the sky being there. But you can explain the photon easier because it's smaller. I mean, it's not it's simpler. It's not got as many constituents, has it? So
Well, you mean constituent?
parts
What's?
like the god is made up of stuff. It's got to be made
Hmm.
of something, of energy. But this photon is just energy. It's just it's something smaller, something more simple. So
Okay,
it's
okay, I
easy to
see where you're
explain.
going with this.
But
So you're taking the creation from a rational point of view, kind of like an Occam's razor. Like, what's the simplest explanation?
yeah, yeah, like
So, so in your universe, is there a God, or is it more of a we're all connected through energy, or
there's no
where are we
god.
going here?
There's no
No
god in my
God.
universe. But there it was. It started from something that had a reason. If you know what I mean. I mean, it's
Okay, I'm understanding this. So,
because
what would be the reason for your photon? Why does it reason instead of fizzling out and into blackness and nothingness?
that's something I can't explain. No one can explain. No one can explain where the universe comes from, except from if they offer a god as their explanation, which is I find it to be sort of chickening out. if
I
you if you,
understand that.
if you offer it, say just leave the problem to someone else. That's what I'm doing, but I'm not trying to explain it. I'm just saying that I can't explain it instead of saying that God made the universe.
I wish we had some physicists in here because I've
Mm,
taken physics classes, but I've never had proper education about the beginnings of the universe.
yeah,
If
me
there was
neither.
like a Stephen Hawking over here, that he would be like laying into us about our bad physics. But
But what we do know is that the universe was indeed created from a point. So, well,
yes,
we not know, you know what I mean, but it's sort
our
of
best
think
information points to that. All
exactly.
we can
Yeah.
do is observe and extrapolate, and we have very, very smart men
Mm,
doing their absolute best to try to understand these things.
hmm
But back to your thing about God being a chickening out argument. This is where I go against a lot of Christianity. When I say that's true, a lot of the times, a kid will ask their parents, why are there animals, or why does lightning strike, or why this and that, and they say, oh, because God did it. And when you're 5 years old, that's okay. It shuts the kids up. But then when you go to stuff like in the 1400s, when we had Copernicus studying the stars and the universe, and all the people in the church are like, no, no. You see, it didn't happen this way. God did it. And
mm.
if you say anything else, you're obviously wrong because God did it. And that's it. It shuts down
That's
science. It shuts
dangerous.
down
Yeah.
progress. Yeah, it's dangerous thinking.
That's the reason for the Dark Ages. And I want to take that analogy that you said just then because it's perfect. The children, I see it as the children of today can be drawn parallel to the people of old. Sort of when the Bible began, I think that maybe the elders needed an explanation. The people of the village say they were like, oh, why are we here, and what's over that mountain? And they'll just say, oh, God made it all, just to shut them up. But and then
No, I
as
agree
as they
with you.
grow older,
That's true across cultures across the world. Here we go again, going against typical Christian doctrine.
mm,
I can't argue with anthropologists or historians or scientists, especially when you read all the stories. The creation myths, they tend to stay similar within a geography and be relevant to the culture of the people.
mm,
So
exactly.
you can obviously see that happening. Like you go see untouched tribes today, and they have the same sort of mythology, and it was very very clearly made up, or because they didn't understand other things, and they don't. Why is there lightning? Why is there mountains? Why are we here? Oh, God did it. God did it. God did it. Don't worry about it.
Yeah,
So
because they've been brought up to believe whatever their tribal elders have said, and their tribal elders can't explain it, so they have to make something up. Otherwise, they won't be trusted.
gotcha. Yeah,
Yeah.
but here's the question: where did the concept of God, the magic man in the sky, where did that come from? If it's all
I'm thinking it's the
bullshit.
logical follow-on from,
Yeah,
because he's all being there. Where is he if he's all being? Well, he must be up there, like the place we can't reach. That must be where he is.
that'd be the best place to put him.
Yeah, on a cloud, because
Hmm.
mankind had never been to a cloud before. And then he must be wise, therefore he must be old, like our tribal elders. Therefore, he's a wise old man sitting on a cloud.
Gotcha. This sounds a lot like the plot to The Invention of Lying. Have you ever seen that movie?
Yes, brilliant British
Yes.
film.
Yes, yes, yes. Ricky Gervais can be a pretty big dick, actually a
Yeah,
lot of times, but he's a pretty funny dick. He did some really mean things to like
mm.
Warwick Davis and stuff, but it was about hilarious. Or Carl, but
Yeah, I love that man.
uh,
He's, he sounds like the guy off Portal 2 as well, doesn't he?
yeah. But I can believe that, and actually, to a lot of extent, I do believe that. But the concept of God that we've got now is so radically different than what we had, let's say 2, 3, 4,000 years, hell, 1,000 years ago,
Yeah,
up until probably I don't know. Well, the Romans were pretty smart to some degree, but then you have the fall of the empire and the Dark Ages. But I mean, the concept of God was always an old white man sitting in a sky with a beard, using magic to control everything. And over the last couple of decades, or centuries, I'm stumbling and bumbling my words here. The popular perception has changed very greatly to an energy force, an unknowable, unknown, something that's beyond definition or doesn't exist generally in popular culture. Now, back in the day, we had a lot of that, but that was only the very, very advanced, the very scientifically or philosophically advanced. But now we're seeing that change. So we're seeing the entire concept of God being reinvented over a series of time to fit cultural needs, which is fascinating.
well, maybe in a person who believes that Christian is very difficult to forgive for being this thing that brings our children up to offer random excuses for things. That's, it's kind of teaching our children the wrong things. But I do think there are ways to forgive it. Like when people are on their deathbeds and they're looking for something that's after life, like you would, wouldn't you? You want something to be out there, so it kind of gives people hope. But is false hope better than hope? I mean, better than truth.
That's more of a personal problem. For me, false hope is better than no hope. I would rather not believe. I would just rather know the truth than sit there going along believing something that's not real. That's kind of how I've been my life because I don't like making bad decisions. I don't like screwing up. And when your false hope gets smashed, that's way worse than when
Yeah,
your real hope gets smashed.
exactly. That's why I think it's forgivable, in that sense.
Yes, that's again. I'm gonna try and defend myself a little bit. I know a lot of people do that. They turn to God on their deathbed. They turn to God when they're in prison. They only turn to God when they're down. God should not be your misfortune should not be the reason for believing or disbelieving in anything. Just because you're sick and you want to start praying, that doesn't mean that everything's going to get all better.
Yeah,
That's a mental trick that you're playing on yourself.
yeah. But sometimes it can be useful, can't it, to delay it?
For a lot of people, yes, I know. That's just not me. Like I'm
Uh,
different that way, I guess.
yeah.
Like I
Uh,
try not to delay pain or any of that sort of stuff. I just get it over with.
Another kind of thing I've been trying to work out. I've never actually got around to trying it, but do you know the physical constants? Say like big G, the gravitational constant stuff,
I
the
don't know that
universe.
all of the numbers offhand, but I am
No, I
familiar
don't
with
know
all
the
the
numbers, but
constants. Yes.
they are like random, as it were, random numbers, aren't they?
Not sure about if they're random or not. This is another big boy argument.
Mm,
But if you're talking about the randomness in that if they were only slightly different in any of the 20 very important constants that we have, I don't know how many, if they were just very slightly different, then our universe couldn't possibly exist.
yeah,
Therefore, they're randomly they exist in a way, even though they're random, that allows us to exist, which is very complicated thing. Is that what you're getting at?
that's an argument for God, isn't it? But what, how did those constants come about? Like that must be. People say that therefore God exists because they have to be that, but I've been trying to work out the constants as if they were one, like dividing the constants by themselves and then seeing what the other numbers in the equation would be.
That's like partial differential equations. You freeze all the rest, take the derivative of one to view the change in that one area. That's honestly a question for a physicist. There might be some online tool. No, really, like if you do something like you change gravity a little bit, all the whole universe collapses. If you do, especially when you get to like your subatomic forces, your strong force, your weak force, your electromagnetic force,
Mm.
you start playing with those, and you get some really, really crazy
Well,
things
atoms couldn't
happening.
form, could they? And if the weak force and the strong force were changed, interactions between particles with the weak force and strong force inner particles, they would either crush themselves or they wouldn't form at all, would they? So
Yes, that's the argument. Most of the atoms wouldn't be able to form. There might be something similar to atoms or some new sort of structure that we don't have yet, but most of the time when you change those forces, literally everything collapses.
perhaps do you think the constants, as we call them, maybe they aren't constants. Maybe they've changed over the time of the universe.
I've thought about that as well. Maybe maybe our so-called constants are also in flux, or were at some time in flux, and
Mm.
are now in a equilibrium. But then a constant is, like you said, it's a number. It's something that is constant. It is. It doesn't have a reason
Mm.
that it's that way, or at least not one that I personally understand. So that's a very complicated question.
Yeah.
I don't have
Okay.
a good answer. Is my answer.
Okay. Well, shall we leave it at that for now?
Sure.
It's
I
been
guess that's it. We've probably bored the shit out of a lot of people here.
it's been quite a long commentary, but if you watched it all and you liked it, then good for you.
Yep. Uh, well, that's it. I hope you enjoyed this really, really serious business commentary. What are we up to here? Like 30 minutes plus?
Probably.
Man, you better put some really crazy compression on this video. I'm going to spend like a week uploading it. We might have to do it in parts.
Okay. That'll be fine for me.
All right. Well, if you are interested in this type of commentary and this subject and Aegis or his gameplay, there is a lot more of it on his channel. You should go check it out.
Well, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Come check me out. So I want to thank Drifter for having me on as well because it's been awesome. He's a great guy. So thank you.
All right. Drifter out.